My mother-in-law threw away my late father's ashes, claiming they were cluttering her guest room, so I called the police and had her charged with desecration. Some people think grief has an expiration date. My mother-in-law Diane thought 6 months was long enough for me to get over my father's death, and that his ashes were just clutter taking up space in her precious guest room. What she didn't realize was that throwing away someone's cremated remains isn't just cruel, it's a felony. And when the police showed up at her book club meeting to arrest her for desecration of human remains, she learned that some lines should never be crossed. I'm Rachel, 29, and my father passed away suddenly from a heart attack last September. Dad and I were incredibly close. He raised me as a single parent after my mom died when I was 12, and he was honestly my best friend. When he died at only 58, I was completely devastated. My husband Mark and I had been living in our own apartment, but after Dad's funeral, I couldn't handle being alone in his house going through his belongings. The grief was overwhelming, and Mark suggested we temporarily move in with his parents while I processed everything and decided what to do with Dad's property. At the time, it seemed like a reasonable solution. Mark's parents have a large house with a guest suite, and his mother Diane had always been supportive during our 3-year marriage. She said all the right things about wanting to help during my difficult time and insisted I should take as long as I needed to heal. The problem started almost immediately, but I was too deep in grief to recognize them for what they were. Diane began making comments about my emotional state and how I needed to move forward for Mark's sake. When I cried while looking through Dad's photo albums, she'd sigh dramatically and suggest I was being self-indulgent. When I wanted to visit Dad's grave on Sundays, she'd make passive-aggressive comments about how I was ruining family dinner plans. But the real issues began with Dad's ashes. I had Dad cremated because he'd always said he didn't want to take up space in a cemetery. His ashes came back in a beautiful wooden urn that I kept on the dresser in our guest room. It wasn't elaborate or huge, just a simple, elegant memorial to the most important person in my life. Diane hated that urn from day one. She never said anything directly at first.
The rest of the story on the channel linked below.